You're listening to Don't Tell Me to Relax, the award-winning, no-nonsense, always friendly, down-to-earth fertility podcast. I'm Hannah, a fertility acupuncturist and big believer that fertility care and education should be better. Each week, I sit down with a guest to share real stories, advice, and honest conversations to help you feel better informed. And for care and connection, we have our Don't Tell Me to Relax online fertility community and our clinics in London and across the UK. To find out more about getting involved and working with us, the details are in the show notes. Don't Tell Me to Relax is proudly sponsored by the lovely people at Acupips. Acupips is the original ear seed company founded by acupuncturist Zoe Young. Ear seeds are tiny seeds or metal beads attached to an adhesive and placed on pressure points in the ear. They're brilliant for calming the mind, easing anxiety and restoring balance. We use them in our clinics all the time. Head to acupips.com to find out more and use the code RELAX for 20% off. Hello and welcome to today's episode. I am joined by lovely Katy, aka Reflexologist, and today Katy is going to be talking all about reflexology and about reflexology used alongside IVF. So increasingly, reflexology and acupuncture are really popular therapies to have alongside your treatment. And for lots and lots of people, acupuncture isn't necessarily the one when you're doing IVF because obviously acupuncture involves needles. And for many people, the IVF process and all the injections is a lot. And then going to have acupuncture alongside that feels a bit too much. So a lot of people choose reflexology anyway, but especially if you've got needle phobias as well, it can be a really, really good alternative to find some extra support. So that is what we're going to be talking about today, and who better to do it than lovely Katy. So Katy, before we get into the nitty-gritty about IVF and reflexology, can you just give us a broad overview about what is reflexology and where does it come from?
Great question. Great place to start. So, reflexology is a complementary therapy where we believe different parts of the body are mapped out onto these different areas of the feet that we call reflexes. So, there's a few different theories on how it works, but we're definitely doing a lot of work with the central nervous system and really helping to create that kind of calm, rest and digest place for you to be in. And yeah, so it's an incredibly relaxing therapy, but also can have really profound effects on different systems of the body and be very supportive when it comes to reproductive health. And then, as we know, all the different areas that your reproductive health then impacts. So where does it come from? And here's another part of the question. So it is debated, to be honest. There's been some kind of foot pressing practice found all over the world for many thousands of years, but the earliest documentations of it are definitely from in China. It's mentioned in the Yellow Book. Is that something?
Yeah, the Yellow Empress, I think it's called.
Yeah, something like that. So there's mentions of it in there, and then also in Egypt they found hieroglyphs of someone giving reflexology, and the kind of translation off the top of my head is something like the person receiving says, "Please don't hurt me," and then the other person says, "No, I shall act as I will heal you," and they're like working on the feet and then someone else on the hands. So it's really stood the test of time. And yeah, it's very much a full-bodied experience, which I think people are really surprised by, because I literally work from kind of the real lower part of your calf and then down your ankle and your feet, and that's it. And I think that's one of the really lovely things about it, is it's very non-invasive in its nature. And I mean, I love acupuncture. You know how much I love acupuncture, Hannah, but I totally appreciate it's not for everyone. And I think I could talk a long time about why the non-invasive nature of it is so great. But I think particularly when it comes to fertility and reproductive health, having something that isn't like other parts of your body being touched or needles and things, it can be really suited for a lot of people.
Yeah. And I guess because it's concentrated on the feet, it's very balancing of and if you think about it from an energetic point of view,
Mm.
it's very, we always do a lot of lower points around the ankle for people when they've got a lot of anxiety. Because if you think
Mm.
about when you're anxious, the energy, literally, you can feel it in your body rising. It comes in your
Yeah.
head.
Yeah.
You get a hot head, all of those kind of things. You feel it in your chest, your sweaty palms. Whereas I guess if you're concentrating on the feet, you're bringing that energy down. And people often talk, don't they, about grounding your energy, rooting your energy in the earth. So I suppose that the very location of it is a very soothing technique in itself.
Yeah, and, like, on a real basic level, like, how much attention beyond a pedicure, which, I mean, I don't do myself, I probably should, but, like, don't give your feet much attention,
Mm,
and one of the things when I have treatments is I notice just that physical feeling of, like, I physically feel like my feet are touching the ground more, it's like they're melting into the ground, and I'm like, "Oh, I feel" yeah, like, physically more, like, in my body, and
mm,
it's really interesting having done it for quite a long time now that the things that people really respond to aren't you digging your knuckles into their feet or like using a really hard pressure. The thing that 99% of people where they suddenly take this, like, well, maybe not suddenly, but take a really big inhale, like deep breath, is just me like cupping their heels in my hands and just holding, and just that idea of, yeah, like really grounding and just being in your body. And it's definitely a very instinctive thing. I'm not telling people to take a deep breath, but just being held in that way is, yeah, definitely a very grounding experience.
mm. And so what is it that how does it help with cycles and fertility? What is it about reflexology that helps so much with fertility and menstrual cycle health?
So when we're thinking about supporting menstrual cycles, we're like, I'll be tailoring the treatment to where that person is in the cycle, but there's a lot of work that we do around the reproductive reflexes. So if we're really thinking about it from that idea of if we are working on one part of the body, it can have an impact elsewhere, then by working into those areas like the ovaries, the uterus, there's some of the kind of really nourishing like acupressure points that I use on the ankles as well. Then we're thinking about in that way of having, I guess you'd call that a more in reflexology perspectives, a more direct impact. But that also that nervous system level, if we're thinking about all the various hormonal feedback loops that are happening in the body, if your system is activated and in a fight or flight response, it's just incredibly hard for your body to work in a really optimal way. And that pituitary gland, that it kickstarts so many different hormonal systems. And if we can help to kind of bring your central nervous system back into a calm space, then everything just works far more optimally. And like, that's not to say you need to permanently be in this relaxed state. That's not how life works, and you need the other side of it. But too often, we're all living in a kind of rushing state. Sometimes I see people rushing to this appointment and then they're running out the door, and it's like, oh, like, let's just try and slow everything down. But I don't want to. I know this podcast is called "Don't Tell Me to Relax," but it definitely is a big part of why reflexology helps people in the way it does. I would say, especially for people, and I would include myself in this, um, people that don't know how to relax, um, because if you're used to running around all the time, stopping feels really scary. So kind of enforcing that through a therapy can be a really great way to learn how to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so can you tell us, I presume, but just explain to us that is it safe to use in IVF? Because obviously everybody, rightly so, is concerned about not doing any harm alongside their medication, alongside their interventions, whether it's egg collection or embryo transfer. So is it proven to be safe during all stages of IVF?
Yes, but the one thing I would caveat that with is that you want to be working with a reflexologist that understands IVF and the various different types of IVF, medications, phases, protocols. So then they're not doing anything that would interfere with that. So, for instance, a big no is if someone's on any type of IVF medication, you're not going to do any lymphatic drainage techniques because that's going to kind of um, help kind of eradicate and get things moving in the body. And like we want everything to obviously stay in the body. Um, versus if someone had a IVF cycle that didn't work, then maybe you would do those techniques afterwards to kind of help clear anything from the systems. But yeah, working with someone that understands IVF and that's trained to treat during IVF, I would say, is a really important factor, because in the kind of basic reflexology diploma, that definitely wasn't covered. It was part of an additional training.
So you're looking for people who've got that additional
Yeah,
fertility information
yeah,
and education. Yeah.
yeah.
And so, what are the main things that reflexology helps with as you go through the different stages of IVF?
So it definitely helps with, I would say the biggest thing that I can categorically say it helps with is the symptom management of, or like side effects management of medications. So I see a lot of people um, thinking about if they're like down regulating and they're on northisterone and they're getting like horrible headaches. I had
Mm,
someone that she would come, she had horrible hormonal headaches anyway, and then northisterone would just like it'd be awful for her. And she'd come in with a headache and leave without one. So, and that's definitely true of a lot of clients I see. It's incredible for, yeah, headaches, bloating, if you're like constipated. I'm trying to think of other things off the top of my head. If you're, yeah, sleep, anxiety as well, then incredible. And I can, yeah, 100% say it really helps with those things. There is not as much research on reflexology for IVF in terms of IVF outcomes as there is acupuncture. So I'd love to be able to be like, do reflexology and it's going to improve your chances of conception. Sadly, that research isn't there, but it definitely helps people to have a more um, positive experience or feeling more in control of the whole process. And even if it's just down to having somewhere that they know that they can come, they can talk about it, they can be listened to, and then have a really like be taken care of as well
mm,
during a time that can be really like full on physically and of course like mentally. Then like that
mm.
support I think is what a lot of people end up valuing more so at the end of the process.
Yeah, because I would say that anyone going through IVF, it's a very, very medical treatment,
Yeah,
obviously. And it is very, and I'm not in any way being disrespectful to IVF here, but it's very much like you're in, it's a scan, it's a
yeah,
conversation, it's a protocol, it's very medical. So there is not, that's that care side is missed because people don't have the time. Even in private clinics, they just don't have that time. And it's just not their methodology. They're consultants, they're medics, they do things in different ways. So seeking that care and finding someone who's got the time to listen to you, ask you how you are, and just give you that sense of relaxation is absolutely so brilliant to have alongside IVF.
yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's just such a huge thing to go through, and I think especially if it's, like, your first time doing it, and I've definitely had a lot of clients that were like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting this part of it," or, "I thought there'd be more of XYZ, and actually there hasn't been." And I think, yeah, even if it's having that time to just kind of, like, debrief on everything and yeah, I think the care side of it is really special as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And so is it safe to have it during the 2-week wait?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in that time, comparatively to like when you're in the middle of IVF or like doing like stimulation protocols, we'd be doing very kind of a much more active stimulating treatment versus when you're in the 2-week wait, it's definitely more so about just calming everything, using those really like nourishing grounding points. Cause I know a lot of people find that time very challenging for a variety
Mm.
of reasons. But yeah, again, provided that you're working with a practitioner that understands how to treat during that time, then it is completely safe. It's not to say that working with someone who's not trained would be unsafe. There's never been any kind of claims that reflexology causes miscarriage, but of course, you just want to do anything to minimize risk.
Yeah. And so, how would you go around to find a reflexologist? Because again, reflexology, I think, is a bit like acupuncture in that anybody can call themselves a reflexologist, which is really, really annoying for those of us who are trained and have done lots and lots of further education. So, how do you actually unpick somebody's credentials and find out that somebody's got a suitable level of qualifications and education and experience to treat you during IVF?
So to find a reflexologist, I would say there's a few things that you want to be doing because yeah, anyone can call themselves a reflexologist. You could do a half day course on the internet and be like, I'm a reflexologist. So find a reputable um, to find a reputable practitioner, look at the Association of Reflexologists. That's our like main governing body. So I would start there to find someone that's been like properly trained. They're complying with a code of ethics, and they're going to make sure that they're treating you properly, handling all your data properly as well. And then for um, IVF specific stuff, then I would ideally look for someone that's done some fertility training. Now, I have to say, in my opinion, there are better ones than others. So I would look for someone who is under the Association of Reproductive Reflexologists as well. So yeah, ideally they're part of that another governing body there, or they've done reproductive reflexology training with Severn Reflexology. That's who I did mine with, and from what I can see when other practitioners have spoken to me, is that that is by far the much more comprehensive one, as it's far more detailed versus like a 1 day course, which I think can get people started. I'm not saying to not do that, but they definitely don't go into the thick of IVF related stuff. But also I'd say personally, I'm in a really privileged position of being part of your team where there's so many practitioners and we're dealing with people going through IVF, so have like a really like thorough understanding of that just from like team stories and things as well.
Mm. And are there any negative side effects from reflexology? Any kind of counter indications, or do people have like funny effects after a session? Because,
Mm.
obviously with acupuncture, you can get needle shock. Sometimes people can get
Mm.
headaches. Sometimes, symptoms can get worse with acupuncture. Not often, but it can happen. Does the same thing happen with reflexology or less so?
Yeah, it can happen. Again, I'd say it's quite rare,
Mm,
but depending on what's going on for you, then you definitely can have like we call it like a healing reaction. But yeah, if you feel it can heighten some symptoms, or perhaps like people can sometimes feel quite nauseous or headachy after. And if we're thinking about the way we're working partly with like the circulatory system. If we're getting things moving in the body and your body's working to then get rid of various things, and it can kind of heighten things for a certain amount of time. So yeah, it definitely can happen. Or emotional releases can sometimes happen, which for some people can be really like, oh, I needed that. But other times it can come as a bit of a shock. And I'd say going back to that idea of people that really struggle to relax, that then if they do their body calms down and they're not used to that feeling, and then that can create various emotions, and like difficult emotions sometimes can come up, and it can be a bit disorienting.
mm,
But that's it doesn't happen often, but also if it does happen, it's totally okay.
mm,
And there's a box of tissues by the treatment bed because like these things can happen, but it's just a way of your like we hold on to so much in our bodies, and like we're so unaware of our bodies very often that when you start working with your body in this way, it can feel um yeah, unusual.
mm.
So all kind of emotions, feelings, yeah, they're they're more than welcome. It's not to say they're bad things. They can be unpleasant to experience, particularly if you're going to get like a massive headache or something after. But yeah, it can happen. But mostly I just say to people, just to stay hydrated, take it easy after the treatment, just like really listen to whatever your body's needing. And yeah, if ever anyone feels particularly worried, then just to send myself or your practitioner a message and they'll be able to kind of help you unpick what's happening.
Yeah. The other thing I was just thinking about when you're looking for a practitioner is to see if they do discovery calls. And,
Yeah.
if you're not sure about the practitioner, it's always good to ring up and see if you can have a chat with them first, just to get a sense of, do you like that person? Do they sound nice? Do they sound like they know what they're talking about? It's a really good way. And, no therapist would mind you doing your research and asking questions. So if you are looking for somebody, then it's totally within your rights to ring up and ask some questions first before you book in with them. So I think I always say that for people looking for acupuncturists, and I presume reflexologists do the same thing.
Yeah, like you definitely should be able to speak to your or potential practitioner beforehand
Yeah.
because yeah, at the end of the day, especially when we're talking about IVF, like you're going to be talking about all sorts of different things, like really going into the detail of your menstrual cycles, any kind of issues that you've had, like what type of IVF you're going through, maybe various tests and things that you've had. And like, you need to be comfortable saying,
Mm,
like, I had this procedure and my vagina's been really sore after.
mm.
Like, you need to be able to be really comfortable having those conversations. So you want to find a practitioner that you feel at ease with because
Yeah.
it will just you'll get so much more out of the treatment if you're comfortable with the practitioner being like, I've been told this is good for me whilst I'm doing IVF, but actually you don't enjoy the treatment itself or you don't vibe with the practitioner, then like you're I'd say you're wasting your time and money. So you really want to find, yeah, a therapy that works for you. Because at the end of the day, if you hate someone touching your feet and you're like tense the whole way through it, then
Yeah.
maybe it's not the treatment for you. And that's totally fine. It's the same like you were saying with acupuncture. If you're doing IVF and you're like, I hate needles as it is, but I've been told acupuncture is good for me, then maybe reflexology is a good alternative.
Yeah. So we will put obviously your details, Katie, and the reproductive reflexology website. I presume there is a website with a database on with
Yeah,
where people can find
yeah, there's a find a
practitioners.
reflexologist function on there.
Yeah.
So yeah, have a look there and yeah, just email us to speak to people and yeah, you'll quickly find if that's the right person for you for sure.
Yeah. Great. Well, as always, Katie, it's lovely to speak to you, and thanks for coming today.
Thank you for having me again.
See you soon.
Bye.
We hope you have found this helpful. If you'd like more on fertility education, please see our Teaching to Conceive free course linked at the end of the show. You'll also find the link to join our community. For more personalised fertility support, you can work with us one-to-one in clinic and online. You can book a discovery call to find out more.